Well, your resume is impressive, but what would you say is your greatest weakness?
I daydream constantly about living by the water, the warm sun, in a dynamic city with amazing food and craft breweries, weekend events.
Okay.
With tons of jobs, less stress, awesomely affordable neighborhoods.
It sounds glorious.
Stop daydreaming and get to Tampa Bay for high-wage jobs in finance, tech, and more, all under the warm Florida sun. Find Florida's most bright opportunities at makeitTampaBay.com.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
Welcome to Wisconsin in Focus. I'm J.D. Davidson. Parents throughout Wisconsin should expect a change in regards to how their schools and their children's grades are communicated to them from standardized tests. And some argue those changes won't paint an honest or at least a straightforward picture of both. Joining us today is Ben Yount, Wisconsin contributor for the Center Square. Ben, what's the new plan for Wisconsin schools and students?
The Department of Public Instruction wants to make kids feel better about how they're reading or writing or doing math or doing science.
Bless their hearts.
Yes, they're really good triers, right? I think that's the northern version of bless your heart.
Right.
But bless your heart doesn't mean what you think it is. Hey, you're a really good trier. That's not a compliment either. But no, the problem is exactly what you said, is that DPI is going to change the verbiage, change the language around the categories of success when it comes to reading, writing, math, the standardized tests. And they're going to make them much more positive, but that also blurs the line. And reformers like the Institute for Reforming Government say this is one of the ways to hide poor performing schools and hide from parents the fact that 2/3 of kids in the state of Wisconsin can't read or write or do math at grade level. And remember, when we say that, that's the statewide average. That includes schools in the WOW counties and some schools in Dane County where you've got excellent test scores, where you've got 90% plus reading proficiency. And so if the average is 60-something% of kids can't read or write at grade level, you get into the specific schools in Milwaukee, in Green Bay, in Madison itself, Racine, Kenosha, the bigger, lower income urban areas in the state. And you're talking about single digit percentage proficiency. Some schools in Milwaukee have 1% of kids who can read or write at grade level. And to water that down, to flower it up, the reformers say, doesn't do anyone any good. DPI may focus on the holistic approach of helping student esteem, but helping self-esteem doesn't matter when you can't spell self-esteem or know how to use it in a sentence.
I get frustrated with not standardized tests, but I get frustrated with, over the last 20 years, this idea of we're grading school districts and grading individual schools. And I think that's critically important. I don't know how we got along without trying to do that. But it seems like every time we get to a place where we can understand what those grades mean, and that's never easy to begin with, no matter how they do it, we change it. And it just seems that I don't know how else to look at this other than a little piece of it is we're going to try to keep parents and communities in the dark and not expect accountability.
That is the fear. That is the cold, icy explanation from these education reformers. Look, the way that it's going to be is, all right, if you are advanced in math or reading, you're going to continue to be advanced, right? That sounds great. Hey, my kid's school is advanced when it comes to reading, writing, and math. A lot of parents love that. A lot of schools love that. They can come and say, look, we're advanced. I mean, DPI says we're among the best in the state. But the current rating of proficient, which, and let's be honest, proficient means you're getting a C. It doesn't mean that you're getting an A. You're not reading at an A level. It means that, okay, you can read well enough that you could pass this class. Proficient is going to change to the word meeting. So as opposed to being proficient with your skills, you're meeting those skills. Basic, reading, writing, and math, basic is going to be changed to approaching. Well, you're almost there. You're doing really good. And what right now is below basic is going to change to developing. And part of the problem with that is that developing sounds like you're making progress. You're developing. Look, we're developing this house. We're developing this neighborhood.
Right now, I'm developing into a U.S. Open golf champion.
That's you are. And one of these days you'll be approaching it, and
sure,
maybe one day you'll be meeting it. And the problem is that takes away any sort of real meaning. Not only does it sound much better, it erases every report card from before 2024. Because DPI, well, the standards have changed. And what used to be, you can't really go apples to apples anymore. You got to go oranges and oranges. And this is the first year of oranges. And that's the point that you make so well, is that this just seems to be another way to obfuscate. Quentin Claiborne, who's one of the education experts that we talk to all the time, he said, so this means 78% of kids in Milwaukee's predominantly black schools are now developing their math skills as opposed to being below basic. But that's the rub. And that's the criticism. And that's the fear, is that if you continue to lie to parents, it's one thing if you tell mom and dad, hey, little Jimmy isn't reading too well, and mom and dad say, oh, well, not my problem. It's another thing if you tell mom and dad that little Jimmy is developing his skills and they think he's doing well, and then he graduates high school and is barely literate. You know, Milwaukee public schools have some of the worst numbers in Wisconsin, but there is no doubt that Milwaukee schools have the absolute worst racial learning gap in the entire nation. Schools in Baltimore, schools in Washington, D.C., schools in Chicago are better than Milwaukee. And that's been this way for 5+ years. Ever since I started writing here in Wisconsin, the headline every year is Milwaukee's worst in the nation racial achievement gap continues. And to change the verbiage around how well these kids can read or write or do math, that's not going to change the outcome. It is going to change the perception. And there's this sense that that's all that the Department of Public Instruction really wants here.
You know, if people are serious about improving public education, and we could debate for hours how to exactly do that. I think the very bottom line is, let's just be honest and upfront and straightforward about where we stand now. You can't get where you want to go if little Johnny is developing, and I don't really know what that means.
This comes back to the split. That, are you going to focus on teachers or are you going to focus on kids? And that is the split right there. And that's the difficulty, because DPI is a bureaucracy. It's filled with people who used to be teachers or used to be educators, administrators, used to be people with deep ties to the teachers union. And when you change the language around test scores, it makes sure that you can't point to teachers who aren't doing their job. If you track actual reading scores, all right, last year Johnny was at a 24. This year he's at a 22. Why did he go backwards? Hey, Mrs. Krabappel, what happened? What didn't you teach this kid? Then you can all of a sudden, now you're holding teachers accountable. Now you're talking merit pay. Now you're talking school choice, and you're off to the races. So yeah, look, if this was easy, it would have been done a long time ago. State legislatures, school boards, they're really good at the easy stuff. But fixing how well kids can read, write, and do math, this is a decades-old problem that has cost trillions of dollars. And so if anybody has the answer, reach out and let us know. You could be really, really rich and really, really popular if you could figure this problem out for Milwaukee.
Well, this will be interesting to follow in the weeks and months and years to come. Ben, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.
Well, your resume is impressive, but what would you say is your greatest weakness?
I daydream constantly about living by the water. The warm sun, in a dynamic city with amazing food and craft breweries, weekend events.
Okay.
With tons of jobs, less stress, awesomely affordable neighborhoods.
It sounds glorious.
Stop daydreaming and get to Tampa Bay for high-wage jobs in finance, tech, and more, all under the warm Florida sun. Find Florida's most bright opportunities at makeitTampaBay.com.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.